Good evening. This is CTV News for Thursday, September 17th. I'm Patricia Vallone.
And I'm Sonia Shrivastava. Thank you for joining us this evening. Prince George's County woman is the state's latest victim of the West Nile virus. Officials in Laurel are urging residents to take precautionary steps, but some folks are questioning whether the city is doing enough to keep the mosquito population at bay.
The daughter of Dorothy Mount tells me her mother loved spending time outside the family's Laurel home. She says when her mother initially fell ill Labor Day weekend, she thought it was food poisoning. Her mother passed away 5 days later. This week, a call from the hospital confirming the cause of death to be West Nile virus. 94-year-old Dorothy Mount died September 9th. The seamstress and Navy veteran lived in this house in the 1000 block of 8th Street in Laurel for 55 years.
Just a sweetheart, just very loving.
We stopped by the Mount family home. Daughter Japanette told us her mother loved to sit in the garden and recently took a short trip to Ocean City. She was shocked to learn her mother died of West Nile virus and believes her age likely played a role.
She was a very independent, tough old broad, as I called her.
When neighbor Mike McLaughlin heard the cause of his dear friend's passing, he notified the community.
It's mainly for the elderly and the young. Most healthy people, it's not a big issue.
Residents say mosquitoes are rampant in the area.
I have a 4-year-old son, and when he goes in the backyard, he's usually covered in mosquitoes.
Though the state is not yet confirming the disease as the cause of death, officials in Laurel say the city is doing its part.
We contract with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. They have been in the city 7 times this year, and the area that we're talking about, that has actually been hit twice this season.
The Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is only confirming one death from West Nile virus this season. An agency spokesperson says the state is aware of preliminary test results of another death involving a senior, but is awaiting for a conclusive test result.
A Montgomery County Council committee is considering a ban on pesticides. The measure would prohibit the use of the insecticides on private lawns and county-owned property, including athletic fields and parks. Thousands of letters and emails are pouring into lawmakers regarding the issue. The bill's sponsor, Council President George Leventhal, says the ban has overwhelming support.
The bill that I introduced would prohibit the use of toxic chemicals on people's lawns. It isn't necessary to use herbicides and pesticides that are linked to cancer and respiratory disease and developmental delays and cause harm to pets and pollute our water supply. It isn't necessary to use those chemicals to maintain a desirable green, healthy lawn. And so they're really just being used for cosmetic purposes.
The full council is expected to take up the bill in October.
The United States Constitution takes center stage at Prince George's Community College. A forum examined the document in an event called Know Your Rights. Our Byron Scott has the story.
You may recall, or perhaps you may not, that today is U.S. Constitution Day, honoring that day back in 1787 when the delegates signed that monumental document. Well, today here at Prince George's Community College, there was discussion about knowing your rights. Knowing Your Rights examined issues related to police stops.
My best advice to give when you're stopped by the police, do as you're told.
Dr. Johnny Jones showed a video clip of the wrongful arrest of tennis star James Blake in New York City.
That's the way you act. Cooperate, submit, follow orders. Don't fight on the street. Do your fighting in court.
To Kenneth Clark, those words are frustrating.
The statement the lady said earlier about just cooperate with the police, you still cooperate with the police, and the police still do what they do.
Clark says he speaks from experience and says he was stopped early one morning while walking to school.
He never once identified or told me why he stopped me, what he suspected, what was the reason. He just searched me, and then once he realized I didn't have nothing on me, anything, no weapons or anything like that, he got back in the car and drove off.
The discussion centered around other constitutional matters, such as freedom of speech when encountering police.
You have the freedom of speech. Did you know that? Okay. But don't exercise it when you're out in the street.
Now, when they start asking you questions about whether or not you were involved in some type of criminal activity, that's when you do what, my students?
And they were dealing with some guy who I guess he was dealing drugs or he's doing whatever he's not supposed to be doing outside. But he is an associate of mine. So how are you going to come and ask me for an ID? I have nothing to do with that. I don't have to give you my ID.
Anytime a police officer has reasonable suspicion that you've been involved in some type of activity, you are required to identify yourself.
We felt that particularly this year, with all that has been in the news in the last year, it was really important for us to have an educational moment to help inform, to openly talk about problems between citizens and law enforcement.
Now, the idea is to keep the conversation about the Constitution moving, and to that end, there are events all this week and into next, sponsored by the school. In Largo, Byron Scott, CTV News.
CASA de Maryland holds a grand opening for its new center in Montgomery County. The facility will help area immigrants in the citizenship process. The new center features application assistance, classes, and a microloan program to make the fees more affordable.
Beginning today, individuals will be able to pay for the cost of U.S. citizenship with a credit card. And so for those for whom the cost in one shot is burdensome, this provides the opportunity to do it over the longer term.
There are about 80,000 legal permanent residents in Montgomery County, one of the largest such populations in the region. We are home in Montgomery County to 57% of the legal permanent residents throughout the state of Maryland.
And the program also includes financial literacy, tax preparation, ESOL classes, job training, and health access. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone.
And I'm Sonia Srivastava.